Imagine it's World War II, and the Kamikaze Threat is looming large over the Pacific. The Japanese Imperial Army's pilots are executing suicide missions, causing devastation and fear among the Allied forces. But in the midst of this chaos, a hero emerges: the B-29 bomber. With the unmatched firepower and advanced technology, the B-29 bombers became the Allies' secret weapon against the Kamikaze Threat. These flying beasts soared through the skies, fearless and determined, striking fear into the hearts of their enemies. So, have you ever wondered how powerful a B-29 bomber and the terrifying Kamikaze Threat was during World War II? Let's delve into this terrifying history and untold heroism of the World War II legends. B-29 bomber, also known as Super Fortress, is one of the largest aircraft of World War II. The B-29 was designed with state-of-the-art technology, which included a pressurized cabin, dual-wheeled tricycle landing gear, and an analog computer-controlled fire control system that allowed one gunner and a fire control officer to direct 4 remote machine gun turrets. The $3 billion cost of design and production, far exceeding the $1.9 billion cost of the Manhattan Project, made the B-29 program the most expensive of the war. The B-29 remained in service in various roles throughout the 1950s, being retired in the early 1960s after 3,970 had been built. A few were also used as flying television transmitters by the Stratovision Company. The Royal Air Force flew the B-29 with the service name Washington from 1950 to 1954, when the jet-powered Canberra entered service. Kamikaze aircraft were pilot-guided explosive missiles, purpose-built or converted from conventional aircraft. Pilots would attempt to crash their aircraft into enemy ships in what was called a body attack, tai-atari, an aircraft loaded with bombs, torpedoes, and other explosives. About 19% of kamikaze attacks were successful. The Japanese considered the goal of damaging or sinking large numbers of Allied ships to be a just reason for suicide attacks. Kamikaze was more accurate than conventional attacks and often caused more damage. Home to some 450,000 people, Okinawa boasts a larger population than other Pacific islands. Japan had annexed the island in 1879 and attempted to Japanize its inhabitants, who were viewed as second-class citizens by many Japanese, including soldiers in the Imperial Army. On April 1st, Easter Sunday, after 6 days of bombardment, the troops of the U.S. 10th Army, commanded by General Simon B. Buckner, began their amphibious invasion of Okinawa. General Mitsuro Ushijima, leader of more than 100,000 Japanese forces on Okinawa, made his headquarters in the 15th century citadel of Shuri at the southern end of the island. Determined to defend the southernmost heavily populated section of the island, he left the shoreline relatively undefended, waiting for the Americans to come to him. It wasn't until a few days into the invasion that the advancing U.S. soldiers realized the true nature of the battle they were facing. Tunnel systems connected the island's caves, and Japanese machine gunners positioned themselves in hidden stone funeral vaults dotting the hills. The Japanese mounted few attacks themselves, conserving all their fire for defending their positions against American infantry advances. As U.S. troops of Okinawa confronted such challenges, Japanese pilots began a barrage of kamikaze attacks on the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, waiting offshore in support of the invasion. Japan's giant battleship Yamato even made its own suicide mission, attacking the U.S. fleet on April 7th, accompanied by a light cruiser and 8 destroyers. Struck by a wave of Allied torpedoes and bombs, Yamato blew up and sank, along with the light cruiser Yahagi, taking with them thousands of Japanese sailors. Despite such spectacular gestures of futility, the kamikaze tactics used by Japan and Okinawa handed the U.S. Navy their worst losses of World War II. The U.S. fleet in the Pacific had experienced Japanese suicide attacks before, but never on such a scale. By the end of Okinawa campaign, some 1,465 kamikaze pilots sank 29 U.S. ships and damaged 120 more, killing more than 3,000 sailors and wounding another 6,000 or so more. By mid-May, U.S. forces had pushed Ushijima's 32nd Army south to its final line of defenses at Mabuni. Hordes of civilians, whom Japanese soldiers terrified with tales of the brutality of U.S. troops, desperately followed the retreating army, often getting caught in the crossfire. Over some 10 days in mid to late May, several regiments of U.S. Marines fought to secure Sugarloaf Hill, a mound of earth barely 50 feet high and some 300 yards long, located on southern Okinawa. Concealed in a network of caves and tunnels with disguised firing positions, the Japanese troops defending Sugarloaf were able to take out the tanks used to support the advancing Marines with mines, artillery, and anti-tank fire. At the same time, their own positions were difficult to attack due to their camouflage. Many of the Marines who fought at Sugarloaf never saw the enemy soldiers they faced. They finally secured the hill on May 18th after suffering some 2,662 casualties. Forced to withdraw from Shuri Castle, Ueshijima's army had been reduced to some 30,000 men, and the battle was drawing to a close. Heavy losses still lay ahead for both sides. On June 18th, General Buckner himself was killed by shell splinters while watching an attack by the 2nd Marine Division. 4 days later, as defeat loomed, Ueshijima and his subordinate, Lieutenant General Isamu Cho, committed ritual suicide in their command bunker at Mabuni. Winning the Battle of Okinawa put Allied forces within striking distance of Japan. But wanting to bring the war to a swift end, and knowing over 2 million Japanese troops were awaiting battle-weary American soldiers, President Harry S. Truman chose to drop an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. At 8:15 on the morning of August 6, 1945, the Japanese city of Hiroshima was devastated by the first atomic bomb to be used as a weapon of war. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was dropped from the U.S. Air Force B-29 bomber Enola Gay and exploded some 1,800 feet above the city, delivering the equivalent of around 12.5 kilotons of TNT. The bomb reduced 5 square miles of the city center to ashes and caused the deaths of an estimated 120,000 people within the first 4 days following the blast. Many were instantly vaporized by the explosion. Others died afterwards from the effects of burns and radiation. Japan didn't give in immediately, so Truman ordered the bombing of Nagasaki. 3 days later, just after 11 in the morning on August 9th, a second atomic bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, exploded above the city of Nagasaki. Although it was even more powerful than Little Boy, the destruction caused by this bomb was less than that of Hiroshima due to the nature of the terrain. The original target had been the city of Kokura, but the B-29 carrying the bomb had been diverted to Nagasaki because of heavy cloud cover. Nonetheless, over 2 square miles of the city were pulverized and some 73,000 people killed. The 2 atomic explosions had the effects desired by the Allies. On August 10th, the Japanese government indicated its readiness to accept defeat, subject to certain conditions. On August 14th, it finally accepted the demand for unconditional surrender. The following day was declared Victory over Japan, or VJ Day, although it wasn't until September 2nd that the final Japanese surrender was signed, thereby bringing the Second World War to a formal close. Both sides suffered staggering losses in the Battle of Okinawa. General Buckner himself was killed in action on June 18th, just days before the battle ended. About 110,000 Japanese soldiers lost their lives. It's estimated between 40 and 150,000 Okinawa citizens were also killed. The Battle of Okinawa is now considered one of the deadliest in all of human history. So there you have it, explorers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more thrilling explorations. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.